the outer state of what we see in our environment is a direct reflection of our inner state, which is why it is so crucial that we get on this healing path, because it's not just for us. It is for those closest to us. It is for those in our neighborhood, in our community, in our city, in our country, on the planet.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Saylor. Now, we don't want you to worry about taking too many notes, so you can join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club, and we'll send you the transcripts and show notes from every episode. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Saylor.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour, Surviving to Thriving with Sharon Saylor. And I'm Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com. And oh my goodness, it's such an honor to be with you here again this week for another brand new episode. Oh, you know, what's so fabulous? We're 4 years into the show and we're 200 plus episodes into the show. And we are continuing to find the most amazing guests to bring you. It's just awesome. Oh, before I forget, I got my lovely chai tea here, got the homemade almond milk. If you want the recipe from the homemade almond milk, just drop me a note from understandingautoimmune.com. Contact us over there, and I'm happy to send it to you. Oh, that's good. Tonight we're going to talk about emotions. This primary topic, I think, we'll talk about emotions, but I never know where our beautiful guest, Dr. Nauman Naeem, is going to take us. These are awesome. He's got a book out that's called Healing from the Inside Out. If you're on video, you can see it. Overcoming Chronic Disease and Radically Change Your Life. It's a great book, you know, and it's an easy read, which is what I like. I know that sounds terrible, right? But it's an easy read. I think a lot of times it doesn't get so technical that you get bogged down. And at the end of each chapter, he's got some great questions to continue our thought process. So one of the major things is, you longtime listeners know, that radically changed for me 18 months into my disease was understanding the emotional component. And that wasn't just the grief of coming down with a chronic disease. That was, maybe there was something hidden behind it. And Dr. Naeem's book really corresponds with Dr. David Clark's work that we've had on before. So I brought him on tonight. Let me introduce Dr. Naeem. He's calling in via his cell phone from hospital in Toronto. I thank you for taking your time out of your busy day. It's just awesome. But Dr. Naeem is the author of Healing from the Inside Out, where he talks about the healing process for harmonizing all aspects of your being. He discusses the mind's role in essential recovery, how negative thoughts can sabotage your healing journey, and he gives us practical exercises that go beyond our diagnosis, have the mind transcend our physical limitations. And that's what I love about the book, and that's what I wanted to discuss. So welcome, Dr. Naeem, all the way from Toronto, and thanks for calling in on your cell phone. We so appreciate you giving us this time.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I'm glad to be here.
Oh my gosh, you know, I was so thrilled. I've just got pages and pages of questions.
So does everyone who comes across my work. So that's
well,
great.
I have to admit, like Dr. Clark's, I loved it that it was a medical professional who was open to the idea that there's more to healing than just healing the physical body. And that was, I love your work. It's so eye-opening how you approach it. Let's share a little bit. How did you come to this realization?
That's a very long story, which I'll try to summarize here. So long before I became a physician, ever since, I guess, my childhood, adolescence, I've always been interested in human potential and human behavior. It probably arose out of my childhood experiences. My parents were immigrants. We're originally from Pakistan, and I was born in London, England, and they immigrated to Canada. And we lived in a small city about 30 miles east of Toronto. And I grew up in a predominantly a Caucasian neighborhood, kind of a low socioeconomic class. And I faced a lot of discrimination, a lot of racism growing up. And I never saw myself as different than anyone else, but other people saw me as different for the color of my skin. So, and I the way I dealt with that was just by going within and just trying to learn as much as I could. And I really dove into my intellectual pursuits, which was not only just academically in school, but also I've always been a student of learning. I've been intellectually curious. I've been an explorer. And I believe that it was those early childhood, that adversity that led me to get interested in human potential and human behavior, because I was trying to find a way to deal with my own emotions and feelings around the discrimination I was facing. So I dove into people like Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, who they were very popular at that time when I was an adolescent. And I've read hundreds and even thousands of books on these topics. And my intellectual curiosity motivated me to go into medical school and become a physician. Because what attracted me about medicine was the fact that it was the ability to learn a lot of knowledge in a short amount of time, service to humanity, and the potential to work anywhere in the world. And I was drawn to pulmonary critical care, which is my chosen specialty. And critical care is looking after people who are very critically ill on life support. Pulmonary is diseases of the lungs. So I finished my medical school, finished my training, and I entered practice. And what I found in practice was that I started to notice patterns and trends. And that was that nobody was really getting better. People were stuck in the paradigm of chronic disease. And in terms of critical illness, a lot of the people who ended up critically ill had been chronically ill for some time. And there was just something that sent them on that downward spiral into critical illness. And, we were able to, I was able to treat them and get them stabilized and get them better. But everyone just remained stuck in the paradigm of chronic disease. And I started to ask myself, what is going on here? Why are people so chronically ill? And why are they not getting better? That was when my interest in human behavior and potential was rekindled. And I started to dive deeper into, consciousness, metaphysics, the psychology of healing, ancient healing traditions. And I read even more books and, I explored even more other sources of information. And I've always wanted to be an author. I've been attracted to writing a book for the reason of being able to reach a large number of people with a single medium, thousands, potentially millions. So I've always wanted to be an author. So I finally now had the material to write a book on healing. And I started it maybe 4 or 5 years ago and I found a publisher, and it's been out for a year. And that's my story in a nutshell. And we can dive deeper into
I'd love to dive deeper into some of the things in the book because they resonated with me on my own path from my community knows that I do communications and body language work, I'll say, in the real world. And the autoimmune hour came out of my own diagnosis 4+ years ago. And a couple of things that you say in the book that really resonated with me. And oh, by the way, I love the term intellectual curiosity. That comes through your book. And you and I are on the same page with that. Yeah. Unraveling the story around your illness. I love that chapter because I think not only is there a story behind the story, but as we go through a chronic illness, we develop a story around the chronic illness.
Right. So that you've said a lot in just that statement. Let me try to dissect that a little. You see, we all have those life stories are not who we are. We all go through our lives with various experiences, not all of them necessarily positive. And it doesn't have to be major traumas. I'm not talking about necessarily, physical and sexual abuse. There could be minor things. It could be being perceived as being your sibling being favored over you at one point in your life. It could be when you were an infant, you were crying longer than usual before you thought that you should have been picked up or attended to by your mother or your father. In the meantime, you don't know that they're busy with something else, and it's not that they're ignoring you. It's just that there was a delay. So there's a lot of, these little incidents that happen, and they all culminate into a life story. And what I'm trying to get to is that our life story is not who we are. Who we are is a lot deeper than that. Life story that people become identified with this, and especially if it is a difficult or a traumatic life story. And when we identify with that, and that becomes who we are, not knowing the deeper essence of who we are, there's emotions that come around that, and those emotions can become trapped and cause blocks. And when we face a stressful situation, those emotions that we have not dealt with can become triggered and cause an adverse reaction to the stress, cause inflammation in the body. And we all know that inflammation is one of the main attributes of chronic disease. And then there's the story around the chronic disease. So once we have a chronic disease, often that chronic disease is perpetuated, and it is perpetuated through the various stories we create around the illness. Examples are the victim story. Like if you were a victim in another part of your life, you may see yourself as a victim of the illness. There could be someone who's attention seeking, and they're using their illness because they're lonely, and that's what gets them attention. So those are just two examples of creating a story around the illness.
And that's what's fascinating to me is the stories we create. And one of the things we work here on the Autoimmune Hour is to talk about these stories, and not only the stories that we create, because I've seen the victim, and at each time as you're going through the recovery process, you might fall into that little victim story for a while. And the idea is to be able to realize, oh, I'm in the pit. I've got to step out of the pit here.
Exactly.
But an interesting thing that happens that I have found with the story around it is the story that other people in your life create for you as well. And that's sometimes hard to overcome. They see you, oh, poor you. I don't know how you stay so strong. I don't know how this. And pretty soon I find on occasion, if it's a particularly low day, I'm combating those ideas of, maybe they are right.
Right. And there's the stories that we tell ourselves, and then there's the stories that other people try to push on us about what they observe or their perceptions of our life situation. And everyone deals with this. This is not just, for people with chronic disease, we all deal with this. And it doesn't have to be around chronic disease. It could be around our relationships. It could be around our career, our finances, all these other aspects of our lives. But the important thing to realize is that all that is just someone's opinion or perception of who you are. Whatever they are attributing to you is not who you are. Who you are is far deeper and greater than that. And it's true of the person who is also creating that story about you. They are also greater than their opinions and their perceptions of who you are and who they are. So it's something that pervades everybody. It doesn't matter who we are. So, we just have to be able to see through story to our true nature. And I believe that's what, I'm getting to in my book, is getting to the essence of who we truly are, our true nature, beyond story, beyond thought, beyond emotions. Because these are all aspects of who we are, but they're not our true nature.
Oh, that's beautiful. We need to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to follow up on that, because there's another concept in his book called No Such Thing as a Negative Emotion, and I enjoyed that one too. That's just part of my list of all sorts of questions I have here. But anyway, when we come right back, we'll talk to him about that.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour, Surviving to Thriving with Sharon Saylor. And I'm here tonight with Dr. Nauman Naeem, and he has written this marvelous book called Healing from the Inside Out. And he describes how the healing process is not just about the physical part, but harmonizing all aspects of us. And before we had to take that quick commercial break, we got into this topic about story and the stories we tell ourselves and how they can keep us in certain places. Dr. Naeem, I'd like to talk about some of the things you've discovered that get us out of those stories, including the concept of no such thing as a negative emotion. When I read that part, I was just like, yes.
Right. So the thing is that emotion is a huge area which few of us understand. So let me try to do it some justice here. Emotions, I believe, are how our lower self communicates with our higher self. And it is the experience that our true nature has in this life on earth. That is what emotion is. And in our lifetime, there is a whole spectrum of emotions that we can experience, all the way from feeling despair and desolation to ecstasy and everything in between. And the problem is that a lot of people end up identifying, number one, when they get a negative emotion, sadness, grief, anger, jealousy, whatever, it causes pain. And then because we don't want to feel that pain, we tend to repress that emotion. And especially if it's around a traumatic event in our lives. And the fact is that when you suppress or repress that pain becomes suffering over time. So our emotions are meant to be felt and experienced fully and thoroughly. Now, for someone who has dealt with something in their past or recently, this is a difficult concept because I myself have had tragedies that I've dealt with as well, loss of loved ones and whatnot. And the thing is that just by virtue of being human, we are going to experience pain. Pain is unavoidable. If you think you're going to live your life without pain, then you're in the wrong place. You're on the wrong planet. You're in the wrong existence. We're all going to experience pain. The issue is not pain, but the issue is suffering. So whatever emotions that we experience, we are meant to feel them fully and thoroughly right to their core in order to release them and get to the core of that emotion, which is a place of inner peace. And I use a metaphor in my book. A negative emotion is like a hurricane. So a hurricane has this huge onslaught and you're buffeted and you're blown and you're being pelleted with rain. And it just feels like the whole world is going to end. But if you are able to bear the brunt of that storm until you get to the eye of the hurricane, what's at the eye of a hurricane?
Calm.
It's
A
calm,
moment of
it's
calm.
peaceful, it's a moment of calm and peace. That's what is at the eye of the hurricane. And I use that metaphor to describe an emotion. Once you're able to burn through your emotions and allow them to run their course, you get to this place of inner peace. This can be true of positive emotions as well. Sometimes we have milestones that we achieve, but we may feel that we don't deserve them, or we're being complimented for something and we don't deserve that. So it can be true of positive emotions as well. People can repress positive emotions because they feel that they don't deserve something, or they don't deserve that compliment, or whatever they've achieved, they haven't earned it. So it can work both ways. So the point I'm trying to make is that we need to experience our emotions fully and thoroughly. And I believe that suppression or repression of emotions has a lot to do with a lot of the chronic pain that people experience, because studies have shown that people with chronic pain, if you test them and try to find the source of that pain, 80% of those people, you're not going to find anything that is causing the pain. And it's documented in the medical literature that 80% of chronic pain is actually not physical. So it lies somewhere else. And I believe that emotion is a huge part of that.
Oh, wow. And I know this is the science of Sharon, but when I started 18 months into my condition, when I started exploring emotions, things that from my past and in the current process, I did notice bump in how I was feeling, a good bump up in how I was feeling. And that to me was enough to keep me going along that line. Oh, now that's not giving up my medical, the physical part of the healing or anything else, but it was just another layer of healing that I found was so profound for me. And that's why I love bringing it on the autoimmune hour, because for me, the jump was so high in transition from here to there was so quick and so high. And that's why I loved when you said healing is not linear. I was like, absolutely.
It is not linear, because the thing is that, there's so many aspects. And I think it'd be a good time to just to share my definition of healing, because I usually start out that way, but we haven't gotten there. When I talk about healing, I'm not talking about cure, because when you talk about cure is a specific endpoint at the level of the physical body, right? So when you look at the word healing, the root of the word healing is whole. So healing is to become whole. What it means to me is to integrate all the aspects of who you are: physical, mental, emotional, vibrational, which vibrational, I mean energy, and spiritual, and to cultivate and integrate all those different aspects of who you are at the highest level. So when you said that healing is not linear, it is because we are multifaceted beings. We are multi-dimensional beings. We have to integrate all those aspects of who we are, and it's not a linear process.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. And I have to, just a little point from my side is that I remember about 18 months into the process, the experience, I was doing so well that I actually started tapering off all the medications and have actually been off them for 18 months now, which is fabulous. But I remember the doctors at that time sort of wagging their finger and saying, "But Sharon, you're not cured." And I said, "I feel great. I don't care if you call it cured or not. That wasn't the that wasn't the point of this process. This point was to optimize as much as I could." Because as a human being, I think there's always going to be little foibles about us, unfortunately. That's just kind of the way it is. So that's the thing I think about cure, is how we define cure. And for us here at the Autoimmune Hour, we go, are you thriving? Are you working towards that optimal place? Maybe you're there already. So we're going, that's great. Stay there in the thriving position. Now, one of the things I'd like to talk to you about, since we're talking about healing right now, is the idea of, you say you have 9-part healing process. Let's go over something that you found are critically important.
So I think that it all starts with intention. I think intention is the most critical aspect of that. So when I talk about intention, in my experience working with patients, I have found that the majority of patients have no intention of healing. That may sound surprising, but, we've already talked about there may be many reasons why someone has no vested interest in healing. It may be the story that they've created around the illness is perpetuating a story. They're getting some secondary gain. So it all has to start with intention. And what I have found in my experience is that there's two very crucial aspects to grounding that intention to heal. And that is what I call your powerful why and connection. We can talk about those. What I mean by powerful why is that having a greater calling, having a greater meaning to your life. And I don't necessarily mean purpose, because I believe that we all have the same purpose. We are all here to awaken to our true nature of who we are and to express that in our lives here on this planet. We all have that same purpose, but the way that is expressed is our greater calling, our powerful why, the meaning to our life. So I encourage everyone to ask those questions, to try to discover what their powerful why is, their greater reason for being. And it doesn't always have to do with what you're doing right now in terms of your career or your job. And you may have no idea what it is, but you have to start somewhere and exploring your powerful why. And then I have a series of questions and processes that I take the reader through to try to get to the root of that. It's not something that necessarily will happen overnight, but through a process. And then there's connection, because healing does not happen in isolation, because we are not isolated beings. We are connected to everyone and everything around us, because in our essence, we are energy. Everything is energy in its essence. And if you look at the fundamental particles of matter, the atom, and you look at the subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, electrons, you break them down into their subatomic particles. What quantum mechanics tells us is that 99.9999129% of those subatomic particles are empty space, and the rest is matter. So this appearance of us as physical beings and everything that we see around us is an illusion of sorts, because it's really empty space, but we are seeing it as matter. What I'm trying to get at is that empty space is a vibrational frequency, and that is something that is common to all living and non-living things, all matter. So we are all connected at the deepest level, and we have to embody that connection if we truly want to solidify our intention and get on the path to healing. So that's the intention piece of that.
It's fascinating to me that I heard that you said that, most of the patients don't come in with an intention.
Right.
That explains a lot to me why when I would go into a doctor's office and I would make it very clear, my intention is to overcome autoimmune, that it will no longer be part of my life. Mm-hmm. And I found that just in some cases, it was a little hard to convince other people that I was seeing my reality, not their reality. When they're like, "Get real, Sharon, this is your life now." And I'm like, "No, that's not my life." But right. I think finding your intention, I loved your questions in the book too, a lot of them. And there was some questions there about your childhood and what did you love to do as a child? And I found that was profound too, in uncovering my why.
Right. Yeah, because one thing that's common to most children, depending on the circumstances in which they grow up, I mean, childhood is what I love about childhood, and I have 3 children of my own. They're teenagers now, but I mean, is that it's a time of fascination and wonder, and it's a time when our imagination is allowed to run wild. And we lose that over time because we are conditioned by the education system. We are conditioned by, our parents, our peers, our surroundings, mass media, social media, all these influences on ourselves. So we're conditioned, and over time, we get pigeonholed. We have people have expectations. We're expected to do certain things. Parents want us to participate in certain activities. They want us to pursue certain career paths. They want us to marry a certain person or have a certain life, whatever that may be. And when we have all this external conditioning, we lose that sense of wonder, that fascination, that imagination. But I feel that imagination is one of the most important qualities that not only that children have, but that we as adults should cultivate and reignite. It's very important. It's a key ingredient of finding your powerful why. Just let your imagination run wild with what could be possible. There's a famous quote by Mark Twain, I believe, and it says, the two most important days in your life are the day that you're born and the day that you found out why. The day you find out why. When I came across that quote, it just blew my mind. It is one of my favorite quotes, and it was so profound when I saw it that it really made me stop and really think about, how am I living my life? Am I living it for myself? Am I living it for the good of others, to make a bigger impact, to truly try to change people's lives?
Right.
Because in the end, this book is about healing, but in the end, in the last chapter, I tie in your individual healing to the healing of all of humanity and the healing of our planet, because we are facing unprecedented challenges on a global scale, global regional conflict, environmental destruction, human trafficking, you name it. But what I discuss in my book in the last chapter is how the outer state of what we see in our environment is a direct reflection of our inner state, which is why it is so crucial that we get on this healing path, because it's not just for us. It is for those closest to us. It is for those in our neighborhood, in our community, in our city, in our country, on the planet. I believe that the healing of each of us as individuals is intimately tied to the direction that humanity is taking and will take. It's not a coincidence that chronic disease is on the rise, and the healthcare system is falling apart, and it's not really helping people. The medical system is flawed. And all these issues we're seeing on a global scale, that is not a coincidence. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point to make, because a lot of people get stuck in the chronic disease. And one of your first topics in the book that I related to so much is your illness is a gift. And I think this is an interesting transition to that topic from what we were talking about.
Right.
Uncovering your gifts and how this illness is a gift. And I have said for a long time now, when I first started saying, people would say, well, do you wish you could have your old life back? My first response was no, because I think I'm a nicer, more patient person now.
Yes.
And I know that sounds kind of awkward, but when you're down with a chronic illness, you learn patience, you learn a lot of things. You're able to see through other people's eyes that you had never seen before. But then the uncovering that I love about the unraveling, I love that word that you use a lot, in the illness being a gift, was how over these 4 years I've been profoundly propelled to use my communications and body language work, where I teach leaders, CEOs, C-level people how to communicate with clarity and intention, into healing. And I know it sounds odd, but the autoimmune hour has changed over these 4 years to be this platform to show people, look, don't look at this as a gift, look at it as another door opening, and bring the positive things in. And I'm just, as a patient advocate now, that I'm just so can get on my own soapbox here and talk about, start to unravel, start to see the positives in the illness. What have you learned about yourself, and how can you bring that to a larger scale? Awesome. You have a quote in the book, and it's a little bit off topic. I know I'm going down an opposite rabbit hole, a little bit of where we were, but I'm going to pull it up right now if I can find it. I love this. I'm going to make this into a little meme here. Emotions are the soul's expression of our experience of our earthly life and the experience in the physical body. I love that. Emotions are the soul's expressions. I just absolutely love that quote. We've gone over it, but I wanted to be sure and let my audience hear that direct quote from the book. And that's how lovely I find your book. So let's talk about a few more things. So we are in the middle of healing, and I find this is sometimes in myself, as Science of Sharon here. I get to that place of where I'm feeling really, really good. And I tend to slip back because I'll say, oh, this time I can cheat and just have that cookie or whatever, and I find because I get to this place where I'm feeling, wow, this is fantastic. What are some tips you have for keeping the momentum going, I guess is my question.
Right. That's a good question. So the thing is that we have to realize that we are all human beings. We're not perfect. So along this path to healing, we're bound to slip and get off the path. And we have a lot of other things vying for our attention and a lot of other distractions in our lives, a lot of other commitments. What I tell my patients and clients is that it comes down to a commitment. And, we have a lot of different commitments in our lives. We have commitments to our significant other, commitments to our children, to our parents, our extended families, commitments to work, commitments, all sorts of different people in our lives. However, the most important commitment that we have is to ourselves. And I feel that if how busy it's become with technology and all the things that can distract us, we lose sense of that commitment to ourselves. So I tell my patients and clients that you have to continually renew that commitment to yourself, because you're bound to get off the path and get bound to stray. And it's not something to get down about or to beat yourself up about, because this happens to everybody. But it's about renewing that commitment. And one of the ways that I tell people who I work with is keep a journal, because journaling is a powerful tool. I tell people to use a journal to get their emotions on paper, because that's one of the ways of feeling and expressing our emotions, like I talked about earlier. But also use a journal to track your progress. And even journal every day at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be a laborious undertaking. It could just be 5 minutes at the end of the day to say, okay, so this is what I did today. I made this change in my nutrition. I meditated for 15 minutes. I forgave this person who I thought had wronged me. I spent have 30 minutes, in the gym, exercising, or whatever you're doing on that healing path. Even if it's a little thing, like everything is important to help keep that commitment. Do not underestimate the importance of even the littlest things, such as smiling at a stranger, because by smiling at a stranger, you're spreading that love and that compassion, which is our true nature. So I encourage people to use journaling as a tool, not just for their own emotional well-being, but also to track their progress. Even if they go off track, say you missed your exercise routine today, journal that. Just journal it. Just be honest with yourself that something came up. I wasn't in the mood, or I got busy. Just journal it. This is not about criticizing yourself. It's about course correction, because life is a course correction. There's in our life from one place to the other. It is a non-linear process. So it's all about course correction.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. And those on video could tell that I was just intrigued by that, because I am an avid journaler. And one of the things that I learned, I want to share with the community if they're not familiar with it, is when I journal, I leave the left side page blank, and I only journal on the right side page during the process. And then I'm able to go back, but I usually do it monthly, but go back. Sometimes it can even be 6 months, and write what's changed on the left-hand side. Because oftentimes I'm able to see my patterns that way. I'm able to reflect on, and I found it most helpful when I'm doing super well, and then all of a sudden I get off the course. I can go back and say, okay, what was I doing a month ago that was so helpful? Because sometimes I forget, it could have been a little change in my diet or something like that. Could have been the slightest little change that changed the course. And so that's just a tip for you guys who want to take Dr. Naeem up on his challenge there to do journaling. I love that tip. That's fantastic. All of what you're answering has just been amazing to me. The idea that there's no such thing as negative emotions, intention, our why, understanding our why. I'm fascinated by all of that, and I'm absolutely on board with all of that. What is the role of conventional medicine? When we come right back, we'll talk to him about that.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at projectforgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. And I'm here tonight with Dr. Nauman Naeem, and he has written this marvelous book called Healing from the Inside Out. And he describes how the healing process is not just about the physical part, but harmonizing all aspects of us. And absolutely on board with all of that. I have a question. What is the role of conventional medicine when we have these processes in our mind? How do we integrate that with conventional medicine?
That's a very good question. So the role for conventional medicine is that most people don't have the understanding of healing that I'm talking about on this interview and in my book. They have a limited understanding, and it's because of what they've been taught, what they have learned, how they've been conditioned. So I'm not saying that at some stage of their journey, patients will not need to be on some medications, that they won't need procedures and surgeries. What I'm saying is that we need to integrate that aspect of our care into a greater context in a paradigm. But just to give you some specific examples, conventional medicine is wonderful for acute illness and trauma. For example, if I fall and fracture my hip, no amount of meditation is going to heal my hip. I want to go see an orthopedic surgeon to have that surgical intervention. Another example is if I develop an acute infection, and this is a good example I'll use. If I develop a pneumonia, for example, and I'm really short of breath, I'm coughing, my oxygen levels are dropping, my heart rate's going up, it's affecting my blood pressure, I may need to be admitted to the hospital and get antibiotics to treat that pneumonia to get better. However, I need to look at, okay, so why did I get the pneumonia in the first place? Was it because I was under too much stress? Was it because I was not looking after my body with the right nutrition? Was it because I wasn't exercising? Was it because dealing with too much in my life, I'm overwhelmed? Was it because I have an emotional block? Was it because I have a limiting belief? We have to look at that acute illness in a greater context of our life situation, of who we are. So you treat the acute illness. In the meantime, you look at it in a greater context. So the role for conventional medicine is to treat acute illness and traumas and fractures, but also not everyone who has chronic disease is going to understand everything that I'm talking about in my book at an intuitive level. And even if they read my book, it may take time for them to open up to the greater essence and their greater nature of who they are, and to understand that their healing is an integration, a process of becoming whole. And the problem is that as medical students, we're only taught the physical aspects of treatment, of diagnosis and treatment. We're not taught these other aspects of healing, the mental, the subconscious mind, the emotional, the vibrational, the spiritual. So there is a role for conventional medicine, but it needs to be integrated into the greater context of our true nature.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's critically important. And I know that when I first got my diagnosis, conventional medicine saved my life. I was pretty ill. But then able to bring in these other methodologies that we've been talking about today that just, to me, were greater, deeper layers on, and I think that accelerated my healing. I'm a firm believer that the conventional medicine saved my life and got me on the correct path again. And you're right. When I look back 5-6 years plus, I was traveling around the world. My sleep pattern was off. Jet lag was a consistent factor. Trying to find the right foods in certain locations, another factor.
Right.
So looking back, I could see that this was the trajectory I was on. At the time, I can't see. I was just having a great, great time doing all this fabulous, in my mind at that time, fabulous stuff. So I could see how we can get there. Oh my gosh. So let's talk. We have only about 6 minutes left. I'd like to hear final thoughts that you have, and then tell us all about where we can get your book and anything else you'd like to share.
Right. So my final thoughts are this, is that I don't have all the answers. I mean, I have some understanding of healing based on my experiences with my patients and with being a physician. But also my learning and my knowledge is always evolving and changing. And I believe that my book can help people get on the path to true healing, because, like I've already said, a lot of people don't even know what that truly is. A lot of people see healing and cure as synonymous, but they're not. So the final thing I would say is that, when in reading my book, it can all seem overwhelming, especially if you are dealing with a chronic illness or even a life-limiting illness or a terminal illness. But what I say to anyone who's listening is that just take that first step. All you have to do is every journey begins with that single step. Take that first step, whether it is setting the intention and grounding that intention through finding that greater calling or that greater meaning in your life, whether it is embodying that connection with everyone and everything around you, whether you realize that it's some change you need to make in your nutrition, whether it is something that you can do to help quit some toxic habits such as smoking, whether you need to forgive someone who you've been holding a grudge against and is causing toxic emotions that you haven't dealt with, whether there is something from your past that you haven't dealt with because it's too painful, whether you're dealing with a limiting belief that you don't even know about, whether you need to spend some time in stillness throughout the day to really get in touch with your true nature. It all begins with that single step. Don't make it burdensome. Don't make it overwhelming. Just start with a single step. Go through the book and find out what resonates with you, where your attention is needed in your life right in this moment. So that would be my message, is to start with that first step.
Oh, yes. And then it's always another first step, which I love. You take that one step and then the next step, and each step gets easier. And as I was going through your book, plus other work that I've done, one of the things that I liked when you said there, what resonates with you in the book, I found that's usually what I need to deal with first. That's whatever resonates with me, and I've highlighted the most in the book. I'm like, okay, that's my first step, because for whatever reason, that's attracted my attention over all these other beautiful words in the book.
Yes.
And that's what's critically important there, as well as I know you mentioned a few things, like maybe it's dealing with a limiting belief, and I want to throw out the concept of no judgment here, just curiosity, because sometimes when we begin to uncover things from our past, like, oh, maybe that is a grudge against that person, oh my gosh, have I really been holding it 10 years or something, we can begin to judge ourselves down into shame, blame, guilt, and even other places. So when we begin to explore Dr. Naeem's wonderful work, it's come from that place of curiosity and not judgment, because judgment on yourself, as you begin to ask yourself, he's got questions in the back of every chapter that can allow you to do exploration. And that's what I love and my only thought there is curiosity, not judgment of yourself or others.
I love that. Yeah. Wow. Curiosity is one of the most important quality. I've recently had a blog post, because I have a blog on my website, and it was about the most important quality that we can have, which I believe is curiosity.
Yeah, open-minded curiosity, pure curiosity.
Yes.
So tell us about your blog and where we can get the book.
So my website is my name. I'll spell it. It's Naum, as in Mary, A-N, and then another N, AEEM.com. And on that website, there's different links to some different vendors for my book, including Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Inner Traditions, and others as well. So you can get my book through there. You can also get it at all major bookstores. You can also order it through major bookstores, throughout North America and the world. And also on my site, I have a section where I talk about my coaching. So if anyone is interested in learning more about how I work with clients, there's a section there where they can explore that further. And I do free discovery sessions. If anybody wants to connect with me and discuss some of their issues, I offer those free discovery sessions. Also, there's a section where I have posted all the different other interviews and podcasts I've done. And there's a blog. I do a weekly blog on different topics related to healing, but not necessarily just about healing. Because I talk about fear, I talk about emotions, I talk about, achieving your goals, productivity, focus, all sorts of different things, which I think are all related. All these topics are all interconnected. So I dive further into other things. And I encourage everyone to check it out and reach out to me if you have any further interest or questions.
Fantastic. And we'll have the spelling of his website and his name up there if you didn't catch that. We'll have that up there at understandingautoimmune.com as well. And thank you so much for being on the show. I love your book. I love the topic, and we'll continue to explore it for sure as a way to enhance and optimize our healing. Yes. So everyone, be sure and go over to understandingautoimmune.com and get the transcript if you've enjoyed our chat. I find the transcript so helpful because I can go back and highlight certain parts and maybe even insert those into my journal as well, so I keep a memory of these things that I've been learning. So you can go get your free transcript over at understandingautoimmune.com, as well as join us on Facebook to continue the conversation, or look us up on iTunes, and let's see, we're on Instagram now as well, so join us there if you'd love to as well. As always, have a great weekend, whatever your adventures. Enjoy.
The information provided on lifeinterruptedradio.com is for educational purposes only. What you hear, read, and see on Life Interrupted Radio is based on experience only. The information presented here should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on Life Interrupted Radio. You've been listening to Life Interrupted Radio. To learn more, listen to other shows, and gain free resources that can help empower your life, be sure to stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star Reader's Favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at projectforgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.